guys, welcome to my table. So this is a demo setup that I created so I could talk to you guys about getting into craft fairs and conventions, options for displaying and setting things up, and some of the things that I have learned after 10 plus years of doing conventions and craft fairs. I still have a lot to learn, but I'm happy to share my experience with you guys, and hopefully you will be generous and kind and share some of your experience down in the comments below. Hey guys, good morning. I hope you guys are having a great time at the show. I'm Becca. You are welcome to my booth. Please feel free to flip through things, ask me questions, and definitely check out my watercolor comics, 7-inch Kara. I see you guys have a 12-year-old. I think they would really enjoy it. If you like Studio Ghibli, right? Have you ever thought about riding a cat? This book has cat riding in it. Yeah, go ahead, pick it up, flip through it. Oh yeah, I painted all of these pages myself. I could teach you how to watercolor too. I do watercolor classes. Oh, okay. Well, I do them through the library. Oh, you don't live here? That's fine. Let your local librarian know that I'm available for classes, and I would be happy to come teach watercolor and comic classes for you guys. Oh, thank you so much. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Bye, guys. This plus 2 chairs, if you're lucky, is what you're going to start out with. This is a 6-foot table. I have been to shows where they gave me little half buffet tables and that wasn't disclosed. I have been to library cons where they gave me a weird little half table and then a 4-foot library table. But in general, the 6-foot table for any event that's providing the tables and chairs is pretty standard. If you're doing craft fairs, my experience down here in Louisiana is they don't provide you anything. You bring a tent, you bring your tables, you bring your chairs. The plus side to that is you can set that up however you want. If you sell mostly plushies, you can do a bunch of retail grids. If you sell mostly art, you can do a bunch of gallery walls. However, that is a lot of labor, wear and tear, and it is also a lot of initial investment in things that may or may not work for you. So if you're just getting started out, indoor shows where they provide the table and the chairs can be a great way to get started. That's how I got started. Well, when I got started, anime cons were much smaller and a lot easier to get into. So the barrier to entry was much lower. If you're just getting started now, I would recommend doing library comic cons, maybe local college hosted anime cons and those sort of events, and strongly considering whether or not craft fairs are a good fit for what you're selling. I have found that with art, whether it's comics, fine art, illustration, whatever, craft fairs are typically not the best fit of the available options. But if you're a soap maker, if you're a plushie maker, if you're a baker, if you make candy, anything like that, a craft fair might be a better option for you. Now, I have been to shows and seen people just sell flat on a table like this. I say sell, they weren't really making many sales. So what we need to do is take this table and not only personalize it, but also make it so that we can display what we're selling in an appealing way. And you have a lot of options for how to do that. And as you're on your craft fair and convention journey, you may find yourself just accruing display things for different ideas or different scenarios or different types of shows. But starting simple and starting affordably is generally the best place to start. And I'm gonna take you guys to Dollar Tree and Five Below, and we're gonna find some things at those places that would work well for a first time show or a beginner anime con / craft fair enthusiast. Years ago, I did a challenge where I went to Dollar Tree and I showed you guys how to put together a very basic table. That challenge is over on the blog, but I thought we have new options now. It's time to refresh it. Now, I live in Southeast Louisiana. We don't have an IKEA and we don't have a Daiso. But if you have IKEA or Daiso, or IKEA and Daiso, those are both really great places to find convention setup accessories and table accessories. So we are going to start with basically babies first. I won't lie, I hate these things. I have graduated out of these things into retail grids for the most part, but they do still serve a purpose, and they served me for like 10 plus years. And that would be these metal grids. You can find these on Amazon. You can find them at Target. You can find them on Craigslist when people are like liquidating their dorm rooms. You can buy them off of other convention artists. At the end of me using these, I had about 3 sets of these. This is, I think, a half set here. You can buy them in different sizes. If you're looking to save money, I would recommend buying them off of another artist. Now, I do actually still use these from time to time. My cat got the zoomies. So if you see him zooming around, he's a 15-year-old cat who started Silencia and he's loving his life. I still bring these around, they still get use. There are shows like library conventions where I might not have space behind me to set up retail grids, and these break down, you can fly them, they're very modular, you can set them up in a wide variety of configurations. They definitely have their place, but they take a while to set up. They can be kind of heavy to carry, and they're definitely not sturdy if you're doing a setup that other people might be bumping into, that other people might be jiggling. Basically, if there is an opportunity for mass destruction, there's a good chance that these might fall. You can mitigate that with zip ties. You can even just go to Dollar Tree and get zip ties for these. You can also buy, they have these little connectors. My Dollar Tree carries these now. I actually have a separate set that I bought from I thought my cat was gonna knock over that camera. I have a separate set that I bought from my Dollar Tree that maybe I'll pull out and we'll try out today. And I've tried to find these online and I can't, but I will dig and see if I can find something like that for you. But before we do the retail grids, I think it's beneficial to have a tablecloth. Now, some venues will have those pre-stretched like convention tablecloths on the table, and some people buy those and they like those and those work for them. I'm not a personal fan of those, mostly because I think they look very corporate and kind of boring, but honestly, your mileage may vary. You can go out and buy a traditional tablecloth. I have one here that it's really cute. I really like it. These are kind of pricey. I waited until the store was having an end of season clear out and I bought these. Or you can buy a 3-yard length of fabric. That's what this green is from like Joann's or Michael's. 3 yards because it will cover a 6-foot table. On occasion, a show will give you an 8-foot table. It'll still cover an 8-foot table. You can fold it in half and it'll cover a 4-foot table. So it's a good flexible length. And what I did after years of rocking just this green, my mom and I went out and we bought another 3-yard length, this time white eyelet, and she very generously sewed the two together. So now I have a double width of fabric that not only covers my table, it is in one of my brand's colors. Joseph and I call this Natto Soup green, and we use this kind of green and Celadon green often. And not only does it cover my table, it reflects my art. It is a positive reflection on my art, because when you're shopping with me, I kind of want to give you the feeling of like a cheerful picnic in the woods, right? Like that is the kind of art I like to make. That is the general vibe I want you to get when you're shopping with me. And whether we're doing a craft fair or an anime con, I try to keep that consistent. So I sometimes switch out with other tablecloths, but this is the tablecloth that you're going to see on my main table. I also have our eyelet, and that covers the stuff that we're going to place under the table. So when you're doing conventions, if you're traveling for conventions for years, I used a rolling bag that I got from it was either from Target or from TJ Maxx, and it's Victorinox. So like the same people who make Swiss Army knives, but I always buy them on sale. I get the biggest one they have because when you're traveling for shows, you have to drive, train, or fly everything. And we typically chose to fly everything. So we got really good at breaking everything down into 350-pound check-ins and then lugging the rest as our carry-ons. I'm not really going to get into that because I feel that traveling for conventions it was not really financially advisable for me. It is a wonderful opportunity to visit with friends, and you can treat it as such, and I will still continue to travel for shows like CXC, but it's not something that I would choose to do on a regular basis. So I don't really want to get into talking about traveling for shows because I feel like that sets an unfair standard, an unfair expectation for people who are just starting to get into tabling at shows. I also am going to disclose that I did anime cons all over the country for about 10 years, ranging from 10 to 7 cons a year. And I quit in 2020 because of the panini, but I had also decided that I didn't want to just do fan art. I didn't want to keep up with that life, and I didn't want to have to constantly crank out new fandom products because I wanted to focus more on my original stuff, the stuff that I make. So that was a conscious choice that I made that was for my own benefit. But I have friends who we're about the same age and they are professional convention artists. That is what they do. There are pros and cons to both doing cons for fun and for doing cons to earn a living. On my personal note, I would not recommend doing them as a living. I would recommend them being one part in several different things that you do and not being entirely reliant on conventions if you can help it. But each artist has to forge their own path, and just because that path didn't work for me doesn't mean it wouldn't work for someone else. But it does mean that I am not going to recommend it. So I have my grids. Now these are pretty easy to set up. If you're looking for inspiration and ideas, you can definitely go online and find other artists who have a lot of really interesting setups. There is actually an orientation to these with the large squares and the smaller squares. And years ago, my friend Wes went through and figured out the best orientation and made notes for me on what he thought would be the best orientation and helped me set that up. I have since forgotten. So there is a way to do it that is the most stable and the most sturdy, but you know, with zip ties and just making sure you have the right connectors for your grid set. And there's two different types of grid sets. You have the plain silver metal, and then you have the black or white enamel sets. And the grid connectors that work for the silver will also work with the black and white, but they will not, but the enamel connectors will not work with the silver because they are a little bit wider. So unfortunately, when you buy more of the connectors, they sell them for the enamel coated ones. So while I liked the silver and I went with silver because it goes with like everything, I would not recommend starting out with silver. So my most common grid formation would be a variation on towers on either side of the table. And back in my anime con days, and I'll try to include photos for reference, I would hang my banner from the top as well. And there's a lot of different ways you can do that. You can just have the grid wall all the way across. A friend of mine used I think it was like a shower curtain rod, like a lightweight shower curtain rod, just to give it some support. Depending on your banner, you might not need any support at all, and you may be able to just hang it across. So what I'm setting up is what I call like a gallery wall. Now, what you can also do, in fact, I'll do two variations. You can do the one that eats up more grids, but you can create shelves with it. So see, these things pop off a lot. And when you do these grids, you really need to, you can't just roll into the con 30 minutes early. This is an hour commitment of messing with grid walls. And I will also mention that I highly recommend you do demo setups at home. I used to do a demo setup and then pack everything from the demo setup, right? So not only did it help me do inventory and get an idea for what I want my table to look like, but it also helped me pack. But I particularly recommend that if you're newer, if you're still figuring out what works for you, or if you're table sharing, doing setups like that is really beneficial because when you've got two people's stuff on the table, it's important Okay, in my experience, because I wasn't part of a studio when we were doing this, we were two distinct artists selling our work. It's important that people know it's two distinct artists, otherwise they'll just buy one thing from the table and then move on. So this kind of setup here can be really good for displaying things higher up at eye level. You want to get things up off the table as much as possible so that it's more attractive, it's more likely to catch the eye. I have seen so many people at shows selling their books, and I'm a comic artist, I sell my books, and their books are just flat on the table. There is no larger art, there's no banners, there's nothing to catch the eye. You really, if you're selling books, you really have to sell it. I mean, it isn't just enough to make the book and believe in the book. You have to really create a display and a setup that is going to catch the eye, intrigue the viewer, and, you know, encourage them to ask you questions and buy the book. So with these grids, I find they're the most sturdy, like 3 up. You can go 4 up, 2, and that isn't too bad. Any higher than this, if you're selling prints, I would recommend getting one of those photo backdrops and finding a way to tape all your prints together so that they are the backdrop behind your table. And I'm sure I'm going to talk about this more. This is a middle segment, but I really recommend before you even start doing shows, attend shows. Go to the artist alley, buy from other artists, see what their prices look like, see what their setups look like, see what you like, see what you don't like. I have had people camp my table for like 30-40 minutes and just ask where I got everything and not buy anything. Don't be that person, like buy something, because people's time is worth money. But like lots of artists don't mind telling you how they do what they do or pointing you to resources that can help you out, like how to be a con artist. But you taking up their time at the show and not buying something is costing them money. So don't just pick their brain. Also do a little bit of shopping, support a fellow artist, because you are part of the ecosystem that you create. So if you are someone who likes to shop with artists and support small businesses, then genuinely, when it comes your turn to sell, you are going to kind of embody that, and you're going to kind of project that to your customers. And a lot of your customers are going to be fellow artists who may have seen you at another show. I can't tell you how many times as a customer, I had another artist be kind of snooty and talk down to me until they got up and walked around and saw that I was like just 2 tables down. So, you know, another thing is like, you never know who you're going to meet. You never know who someone is until you get to know them. So just treat everybody with respect. And generally, judgmental, catty attitudes in the artist alley are not going to do you very much good. So for this, we have some options. I hope you guys can see it. I know it's hard to see because it's just a mesh. We could start to attach blocks across the back and have them go all the way across and put our banner on this if we want to. You could, depending on what you're selling and how you set up your grid connectors, you could create a shelf with these more horizontal, and you could like put your big showstopper plushes up there. You could go 1 up and hang your banner from the top. It really kind of depends on what you're selling. Now, if you don't have a lot to sell, I wouldn't recommend going for a super tall setup. I would really find a way to kind of fluff out the products that you have. So this is so tall that it's out of the shot now, but this, you could string a banner. I'm gonna need to go grab some more grids so that we can do the other half. Now you could do 2 of these, you can do it just as towers, you can do it as towers with a wing on the side going up to display additional art. It really depends on what you have and what you're selling. So I'm going to include some examples of some of my other table setups. They're not as polished as what I'm seeing a lot of artists doing now, but they were very modular. I could break them down, I could set them up, and I was also selling a lot of originals. I did like mini watercolor fan arts and I would sell those originals. So my setup really needed to be something where I could take something down, put something up, take something down, put something up, which often meant it didn't look as polished and coordinated because I was constantly rearranging the table and constantly setting up new things. I would recommend buying from the same brand and manufacturer. So, somehow that got ripped off. I think I inherited this from a friend who was liquidating some of their grids, so that all of your stuff works together. In fact, if I inherited this from a friend, this, I don't know, let's find out. This looks like it is silver plated, but it has enamel. And I have to make sure my connectors work because, like I said, when you order new sets of connectors that aren't from the brand that made your grid wall, they don't always work. So it looks like these will work. So what I'm gonna do for the other side is just a simple gallery wall. I also wanna see if it's gonna connect over here so I can make a gallery wall over that. And again, so many different ways that you can do this. I really cannot stress that you should go to shows and look at what other people are doing and talk to other people to get a good idea, not only of like what works for them and what might work for you, but also to get a good idea of if the show's a good fit. Now, some artists will professionally lie if a show is not going well because no convention customer wants to hear that the show that they spent $30 to get into is a bust and there's not enough people and the voice actors are not, you know, big enough name to bring in more people, yada, 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 yada. They don't want to hear all that. So a lot of artists, when you initially ask them, will give them, oh, it's fine. Oh, it's going really well. So it also pays to just kind of like stay in the artist alley and walk around and just kind of pay attention to foot traffic and traffic flow. I don't like these birds. I think I inherited these from a friend and I already do not like these. All right, I'm gonna go get the ones I do like. This is the brand that I usually buy, the Honey Can Do. And I usually get them on Amazon just because my Target doesn't carry these. My Walmart doesn't carry these. I have a lot of sets of grids. So on that note, for a while I lived in Tennessee, but I was flying back and doing, these won't fit, these are too big. This is another reason to do a demo setup before you do the show. You don't want to find that out at the show. Let's try those. You can probably see why I moved on to retail grids, right? Especially because I'm not flying as much. What I was going to say though is I was doing Mexicon in Louisiana and I would visit with my mom, who's still, I live in Louisiana now, but she still lived in the States. So I ended up buying a second set of grids because I would do a good number of shows in Louisiana throughout the year. And rather than losing bag space to grids, it was easier for me just to leave grids at her house. So this is something that just takes a while to do. You may want to play around, like I mentioned, with different configurations to find out what works best for your art and the kind of art you make and how much art you have. If you're a resin artist, you may need to find like little shelflets that you can put on these things. There are all kinds of additions for grids like this. You sometimes also retail grid stuff will work with this. So this is really, think of this as like putting up a structure for a house, right? The house isn't finished. Some people cover these with like scrapbooking paper so that you're not just looking at plain old grids. Some people have sewn slip covers for theirs or have tie-on slip covers for theirs. I don't sew as much as I used to. I love that idea, and my mom was supposed to make me a set of slip covers for these, and we switched over to retail grids. So it's not really super relevant, but there are ways that you can make these look nice and also make it so it's not like a bunch of, if people can see through the grids and it's a busy show, that can lead to visual clutter and make it harder for them to parse what you're selling. So you really want to try to make your table as much of a shop experience in a good way, like a cozy little boutique sort of thing as possible. And there are so many artists who are doing neat, fun little things with like gachapon machines, or like they've had custom laser cut shelving made. That is, I never hit that point. That is not something a first year convention artist, that's not a good investment for a first year convention artist, unless you already own those things and you're just repurposing them, or you have a friend who can loan them to you, or you've been doing online sales for years and you have a huge dedicated audience who is willing to come out to see you at shows. That's another thing. Online audience and convention audience are often two different things unless you are very, that got mixed in, very popular. I used to have a large-ish, not bad, online audience for like the kind of stuff that I do for the time period. But while I would promote shows on my socials, maybe one, maybe two people would come say hi, and I was always happy when people came to say hi. It always meant a lot to me, but like, it's just a different audience. And conversely, your convention audience is probably not going to head out in droves to follow you on your socials. I used to do moo cards, the kind where you can do like 100 different designs if you want to. And I had the mini moos, so they really kind of stood out. And I gave away tens of thousands of those things, but I can't say that I really saw that many follows from it. And that's actually not an abnormal thing. And some people will argue that, well, that's still good publicity. Any publicity is good publicity. But if they're just taking the cards for the art and they're never checking out your work and they don't make it a point to like see you at other shows, I don't even mean spend money. I mean like even just are interested in your art outside of what's on the card, I would say that's not the best investment. So we moved to postcards, which you guys might have seen, from my inky fingers to yours. And I've given out tens of thousands of those postcards. Cannot say I have seen, you know, the following, like even a tenth of the postcards. Can't say I've seen that. And the problem with it is because all of you have just an image on the front and then all my information's on the back. And you would not believe how many people have told me that they put the postcard up on their wall, they love it, they look at it every day, it means so much to them, which is sweet, but they've never flipped it over to check out the art or the links on the back. Now, I post to Instagram almost every day with new art. So if they like my art, they're really missing out. And it's hard, I'm trying not to be sour grapes about that. Like, no one owes you a follow, no one has to like your art, but it doesn't make sense to my little ADHD brain, other than ADHD, and you forget why you would put somebody's art up on the wall and not even check the back to see if like they have more art that you could be looking at. So that one just didn't make financial sense either. So I do still have postcards and I still do have business cards. And sometimes when I teach classes, I'll put the business cards out and I'll get people who want to take one of every flavor. So they'll want to take like 10 cards. I'm working on the wings. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to back this up a little bit. Okay. But it doesn't mean they're like necessarily checking out what I'm doing. And that's all I really ask is like, whether you decide to follow or not, just check out what I'm working on, especially if you like really like my art or you really like the commission that I did for you. Now, a friend and I have both tried other kind of follow incentives, like show me that you're following me on Instagram and I'll give you a free sticker. That has its pros and cons too. So I used to just let them pick from my sticker bin, and I promise you, I would have people being there for 10 minutes laying out their stickers to figure out which one they want as their free reward for following me on Instagram. I have had people do that, and then they look at my Instagram and it takes them a while to decide if it's worth the sticker. So the reason that's not a good thing is you want your table to look popular. You want your table to look like people like what you have. But if someone is blocking your table for a significant amount of time and they're not buying anything, you're losing out on other sales that you could be having. And while a convention experience is absolutely not just about making sales, it is about meeting other artists, it's about networking, it's about making friends, it's about sharing a fandom. It's so much more than just making money. You paid to be in that space. You paid to bring your stuff there. You paid to have that stuff made. So if somebody wants to stand in the middle of your table going through your stickers, that isn't necessarily that helpful. And I'm going to touch on this mostly because I'm setting this up. There's something I call rabbit starvation. And it's something I really struggled with in the early days of doing shows. I would make a lot of sales. I would be busy all Friday, all Saturday, all Sunday, and I would make basically no money. And the reason for that is I had a lot of really cheap stuff on the table, hoping that people would buy multiples, but they're just gonna buy one. And I also offered very inexpensive quick fire commissions. And I don't really want to get into talking about commissions here because as an artist, you have the right to charge what you want to charge for your art. You can charge as little as you want. You can charge as much as you want, as long as it's cool between you and your customer and you're not stealing other people's art. And I'm going to include generative AI art in that as well. You are free to fulfill your commissions however you want. That said, there's always going to be people who have opinions about how you're doing it and how you're doing it wrong and how they don't like how you're doing it and it's too expensive or it's too cheap. So all I'm going to say about that is you can make your own choices, and I genuinely feel like some of my time doing quick fire commissions was beneficial to me as a teaching artist because I got extremely comfortable drawing in front of people, but I wrecked my hands in the process because when you're selling very inexpensive commissions, this is before Funkos were like a thing and you could find every fandom in Funkos. I would get commissions to draw everybody's fandom. I would get commissions to draw everybody's OC. I would get commissions to draw everybody's portraits. And I loved doing it, but I wasn't making any money. And I would be doing them live at the show and people would want to watch. And I love that too, but they wouldn't want to just watch. They would want to constantly ask me questions or talk to me about their fandom, which is great, but I have ADHD. I can't do both easily. So something that should have taken an hour and I should have been able to pump it out would take 2 hours, would take 3 hours, would end up having to be mailed to them. So I found that doing commissions like that was not something beneficial. I love seeing the look on someone's face when you draw their favorite character, when you draw them, when you draw their pet. I have made people good cry, and I love that. It's why I love doing commissions. That way of doing commissions was just not a good way for me to do commissions. Okay, so we have 2 towers set up. This one you could do more shelves, in fact, if you really want to cram it full of plushes. I used to have like this, and I would put my books on it so that it was more at eye level. You can fill the wings like this with art. You can have it come out another row and make a gallery wall and fill it up with art. If you want to make sure it's secure, they sell little zip ties at Dollar Tree. You just do a zip tie at every corner and maybe one at the center, and that makes it pretty sturdy. It's not 100% foolproof, but I have seen people with their zip ties lift their grids off the table and put them behind the table when they're breaking down for the night. So fairly sturdy. I mean, I'll tell you a story from MTAC. So MTAC's Artist Alley was in the hall that goes into one of the ballrooms where the rave is at. And MTAC's rave was kind of notorious because they didn't police who came in and out of that hall, and it was a separate hotel from the con. So you would get people who just came for the rave, And the artist alley had set hours. It was, I believe, 9 in the morning to 11 at night, which is not easy. So artists were not there all night. They were not expected to be there all night. They were told there would be security. One of the years I worked as a staff, a friend of mine had her grid wall. She's a pro artist. She knows what she's doing. She does a lot of cons. She had everything zip tied up. Somebody at night, they think it's someone from the rave because there wasn't enough security around and they don't have video footage of who did it, like shook her cages till everything crashed. And she came to the show the next morning thinking her setup would be ready to sell because she had covered it with sheets, which is a common option. Her stuff was just wrecked all over the floor, behind the table, on the table. It was so bad that she decided she just could not that day and she went home. And I don't blame her. So these things are sturdy, but if you have an agent of chaos who hates small business and doesn't care about anyone but themselves, at a show where the artist alley is not as well protected as it should have been, and I used to love MTAC, but that was a known flaw in the system, they're gonna come down. Like, there's no foolproof way. I have also had stuff stolen off of my table from an alley that was supposed to be a locked alley. I have had charms pried off of the board that they were glued to. So, like, you have to accept that there is going to be a certain amount of people just being garbage. And it really is unfortunate, and I wish I didn't have to tell you guys that, but I'd rather be honest with you guys about what to look for so that you can prepare yourself and you can hopefully have a good show. So this is a, in my opinion, fairly basic table setup. Off the top of my head, I do not remember what grids go for now. These were bought 10 years ago, so I will have a scroll over here that shows what they're currently going for on Amazon. Fabric has also gotten more expensive. You could use clean sheets from like Goodwill as another option. So your mileage may vary with the tablecloth. If you have parents or grandparents, ask them if you can borrow a tablecloth. These don't get that dirty, especially if you don't let people eat at your table. And I'm gonna be the con mom here. Don't accept food from people you don't know. Just don't. Just don't. Make it a matter of policy. Just don't. Because the person who is so sweet and so smiling and made these cupcakes just for you might have been stalking you for 2 years on the internet and wants to make you sick, and they may have slipped something in it, and that has happened to people. It hasn't happened to me because I have a policy of not taking food from strangers. Just don't. Tell them you just can't. Tell them you can't eat it right now. Thank them and send them on the way. But don't take food or drinks from convention people. Just don't. Because there have been so many shows lately where people have gotten sick or they've been poisoned, and I don't want that to happen to you guys. So we have our table set up. Let's fill this table with stuff. Okay, so Joseph has some good points, but he doesn't necessarily want to be on camera. So he's gonna talk and I'm gonna demonstrate. So we were talking about the orientation of the grids. And what were your thoughts? He has helped me set up for so many shows. Sometimes he's done the setting up for me while I was teaching a first thing in the morning panel.
It often doesn't matter, but when it does matter is when you have something that is spanning between the grids.
Like prints?
Yeah, if you have a tall print that's more than 13 inches or however wide those are, then what will happen, it helps if all the grids are in the same orientation. When I say orientation, I mean the interior mesh is bonded to the exterior frame of the grid, and the interior mesh should be either all facing outward or all facing inward.
Honestly, it's probably better if you're that together that it's all facing away from whatever you're displaying it on, so that you have a more even display surface. So in this example, it's all facing out. Yeah. If we were doing a shelf, ideally it should be downward. He pays way more attention to this than I do. This was not set up according to that, but I thought What else? Did you have anything else with that?
No, that's pretty much all I said. And I would prefer for the interior mesh to be facing it in the direction that you want to look the best, basically.
Yeah. Unless you're gonna put stuff on both sides. And one more thing, don't be that jerk. Don't be that jerk. When tables are next to each other, don't be that jerk who puts your stuff on the side that faces another artist, whether it is behind the table to show through or it is on the outsides of the grids. That is rude. Don't be that jerk. I've gotten into arguments with people about that. It is bad etiquette. People will remember you. Oh, the connectors also. I did this a little bit wrong.
Yeah, all the connectors should be in the same orientation.
And you want, if you are putting out art, you want the flat surface of the connectors to be against the surface where you're putting the art, ideally. So, like the flat caps would be facing the gallery wall here. So, thank you. I didn't even consider that. Usually I am in such a rush just to get these grids up and to start getting art and stuff on them that I forget.
Because I always ask you where you're going to be putting stuff up, and you always just try to hush me and tell me don't worry about that right now, even though when you're setting up is the time to worry about it.
Unfortunately,
you can't really fix it afterwards.
With the ADHD, I have to focus on one thing at a time, or I will be. And also, I'll just tell y'all both this: like when I'm doing shows, I actually have really bad anxiety the night before the show and the morning of the show. So if you've ever come to talk to me during setup and I was less than wonderful to you, I am so sorry. That was anxiety. It is not you at all. Another general rule of thumb is unless you know the artist really well, just kind of let them set their stuff up, let them get that stuff set up, and then you can talk to them because their focus is rightfully on setting up their stuff. Like you can kind of browse behind to see what they got, but like that is not really the best time to say hi, especially if you like their work online and you'd like to be friends with them. Come back later when they're set up and things look a little bit slow. So thank you to Joseph for pointing that out, because it is actually relevant, it is helpful, and it's something that we'll have set up the whole thing and then have to like start flipping caps discreetly to try and get them in the right orientation. Like these caps here should be the other way for best like display of stuff. So thank you. I am a woman who has sold and does sell many art-related things, but my heart belongs to selling comics. So that is what we're gonna start our focus with first. My recommendation to you as a convention artist or craft fair artist is to find the thing that means the most to you, the thing you're the most excited about, and try to find a way to center it. And selling books is really hard. We have tried a bunch of different setups. I'll share some of those with you. Some are more successful than others, but typically I find that if I want to sell comics, selling them at a Comic-Con, like a library Comic-Con, not a Wizard Comic-Con, is going to be my best bet for selling a lot of books. We're going to hopefully talk about this a little bit more, but Joseph just reminded me that you should have an elevator pitch for all your books. Now, when I was doing 12 cons a year, I definitely had a tight pitch for all 2 of my books that were out. But I have 4 books out now, and my brain has turned to mush after the panini. So while I have written down elevator pitches that we use when we're selling the book on the website, for example, I don't always have the best elevator pitch. So I am not going to show you guys my elevator pitch as an example because it is not that great. I will try to do some clips where I'm at shows and my brain is going and I'm in the mode that would work as an elevator pitch, but you should definitely have a short, succinct thing that you can say about each of your books or each of your products. Witty is great, alliteration is fantastic, that you can just say over and over and over again, and don't feel bad about repeating yourself. I have had customers complain, like, oh, I already heard that, but like, let's be real, I'm an NPC today, and I am going to say my pitch to anybody who picks up the book and flips through it with interest. My brain is just on auto mode. So elevator pitches, very helpful, especially if you have something like a book. You also want to find a way to get it up off the tabletop, which we're going to be talking about, and get it into people's hands. Get them to flip through it. There have been some artists who complain that people will come to their table and read everything at the table and buy nothing, and I've lived that experience, but you are way more likely to make a sale, to find a new fan, to find someone who likes your work if you can get the book up off the table and into their hands. Now, I'll be real with you guys, starting with books is probably not how most convention artists, craft fair artists are going to start. I came from comics, as you guys know, so like that was always kind of my intention, and conventions were a way to sell art, make art, and sell books for me. You may have a different rationale, and even in my early days of doing conventions, I was selling mini comics and zines. I just had a slightly different setup for them. So books are my focus. They may not be your focus, but hopefully I can share some tips for how to display your books in a way that's going to be more appealing. Spoiler, if you have a prose book, commission artists to draw your characters big so you can make signage. So I've pulled some of the books out. This is what we think of as like our con box, right? So it's got copies of Volume 1, Volume 2, Lilliputian Living, and Curious Little Things. So rather than bringing all of our inventory to a show, we already have, and I try to keep it in sets of 10, unless there's a reason. Like last year at Livingston, I sold out of several books, sold out of what I brought of several books to that show because it was just a really good library Comic-Con for me, and people were really hungry for locally made comics, which is awesome. It's wonderful when you find a good fit. But bringing a set number, whatever works for you, of books or plushies or soaps helps make inventory easier. It also, if you struggle to decide what you should or should not bring, how much of something you should bring, maybe you've never been to the show, having set inventory numbers of things that you just always have that number on hand will help make it easier for you. This goes under the table and no one can see it. So we have 4 books that we need to display, and you have a number of different ways you can display books. You could have them flat on the table, but this is, let's be real, y'all are about as far away from me as an average customer at a well-spaced out show would be. Can you see these books? Can you tell what these books are about? Do you know anything about these books? If you were looking at these books like this, would you want to come up to the table and talk to me? Or would you just walk on by? So one of the options, and this one is broken, but you can buy little mini easels like this one. That could work. Now you can see the book. The book is facing you. It's more likely to catch your eye. It's up. You can go to someplace like Dollar Tree and buy book plates. I know it's hard to see, like this. Little book plates. They also have, not book plates, plate stands. They also have larger plate stands. Look, the book is up, it's off the table, it's facing the audience. I went to Clear Signs years ago and I bought these. These are flat pack easels. I love these things. I actually went back to Clear Signs and bought more of them years later. They are super easy to set up, very lightweight, very sturdy. They can take a lot of wear and tear. They hold a variety of sizes of books, and I don't have any kind of partnership with them. I'm not gonna see any money from this, but like I'm also not trying to gatekeep either. They also sell all kinds of different neat display options. And that is, it's on the old one, not the new one. Clear Solutions at cleardisplays.com. So I'll try to remember to put links for you guys. They make smaller stands than this, but honestly, the stand size just works. So you could have a table of these stand signs like this, just however many books you have in a row if you want to do that, but there are better options available. We are going to create height. We're going to create, like, so corny, but like a landscape on our table, right? So we want different heights. We want different things to catch the eye. So if you have just one book out on your table, people are going to think you've sold out and there are no more available. That's not a good thing. So what I like to do is I will have my book stand on some books like this, and then I'll have this kind of further back on the table if I'm doing this kind of a display. And we're gonna fix this up so that it looks better. But then I will have more copies of the book in front of it. And ideally, you want a demo copy that's already been beaten to heck, where the spine's already cracked, so you can have that open so that it's an eye catch, to catch attention. That all takes up table space, and depending on what you're selling and depending on your layout, you may not have room for that. So another thing you can do if we're utilizing these grids is you can take your books, have them on the grid, and you want them as close as possible, right? They're not going to be in book jail. You want them where people can grab them. And you might have volume 1 up, because honestly, when you're selling a series, that is what most people are the most likely to buy if they're new to your series, is the first book. You can have volume 2 underneath it, and then you can have your copies of volume 1, your copies of volume 2. You don't want to go too high up with things that you want people to pick up and touch, because they're not up here. They're probably not going to grab it because they're going to be afraid of knocking down your display. I have another option. Well, we're talking about one table displays today. I have a lot of other options that I use for displaying books and selling books, and I'll try to intersperse them so that you guys can get some other ideas. Those are really more beneficial for craft fairs or situations where you can do the U-shaped display or the Z-shaped display with multiple tables. We're really going to just focus on one table today. Okay, I have had this for years. It has, like, since SCAD, and I could not figure out a way to make it work for me. And I even lost the little clear acrylic display that goes across the front. So I tagged some ribbon across it. When you have multiple larger books, this thing is great because we have limited table space. This is going to let us go vertical, so we're not taking up so much table space. So we've got our 3-book display. Maybe we'll stagger it a little bit. Can put that over here. So it's sitting on this grid. It's not taking up a super huge amount of space. Now, if you just have books and you just have comics and you work traditionally, I know, a bunch of big ifs, you can put your portfolio out. I'm gonna go grab mine and we're gonna talk about that. This is a print or originals rack. We're gonna talk about that in a minute. It's just in the same room as my portfolio. So this is my original page portfolio. This thing is big. I work big. I work at 11 by 14 watercolor comic pages. So when it's open, it takes up a lot of space. Sometimes you can prop it up. Sometimes you can leave it down. Kind of depends on your table and your setup. Now that I have 4 books on the table, it's much harder for me to justify having this out. When I had 1, 2 books, it was much easier. The beautiful thing about this, for me, in my experience, is people love the fact that I do a watercolor comic and I have the watercolor pages. They can look at the originals. There's something about looking at original art that really appeals to fellow artists. So when I have space, or if I'm teaching a panel on making comics and it's not make a mini comic, I'll bring this along. Often, I'll have this under the table in case there's anyone who does genuinely really like my art and they want to see more of it and I just don't have the table space to have it up. And the thing is, it has to be open for it to work. Now, you can do this with prints, like you can have print display books like this, especially if you have a lot of different prints and many of them are being stored under the table. So think about this. You have the photo backdrop and you have your portfolio with your prints that people can flip through. So you want to engage people's senses as much as you can at shows. And also, let me be the one to say, while scents are awfully tempting, scents that leave the space of your booth become incredibly obnoxious to the other people who are also confined in that space with you. It might be appealing to your customers as they come and go, but it's quite likely to give someone near you a headache. Outdoor shows, that's not a problem. Honestly, with baked goods, it's not a problem. It's mostly synthetic scents tend to be really disgusting and obnoxious. So if you care about other people, that might be something to consider if you're doing an anime con and you have really stinky stuff. Also, please don't play music from your table at an anime con. There's enough noise going on. You don't need to provide more noise. I know it seems like an appealing idea at the time, but I promise it gets overwhelming, not just for you, not just for those around you, but for other customers too. It gets annoying very quickly. So, looks like with this imaginary setup for this imaginary con we're doing, that would probably be a library comic con. I don't have space right now for my watercolors. So I'm gonna put them right here. I'm going to just kind of rearrange the books a little bit, kind of based on what we talked about. And you wanna have one, so we were talking about engaging the senses before I tangented. You wanna have stuff people can pick up. You wanna have stuff they can flip through. You wanna have stuff they can basically serve themselves without having to ask you 1,000 questions, because a lot of customers are very shy, and the more you can make your table conversation optional, and I mean that in the best way, the easier it's going to be for your customers who have severe social anxiety, who might have ADHD and are currently fritzing out from the overwhelm and can't necessarily verbalize. It might be beneficial for your customers who have ASD. And it's actually really important to think about people who, with these kind of, you want to think about these people, because if you're doing anime cons, a lot of that audience is going to fall into really bad anxiety, ADHD, ASD, or some combo. And the more you can make your table accessible and approachable for the very shy or the fritzing out or the people who are not looking for a lot of social engagement today, the better your customer relations are going to be and the more sales you're going to be able to make, because you are able to serve a group that is historically underserved. So also want to have the books that people can flip through. With the coloring book, I may want to have it open. Honestly, if I can help it, I want the comics open so people can see them. We're still kind of trying to come up with a good way to have the comics open and taking up that space. Now, with this thing, we could leave these up here as a fellow eye catch, but I'm actually going to redo this tower because this is taking up space that I don't necessarily want to dedicate to this. Now, if I was selling if I brought mugs, this could be an option, but I generally want people touching my grid wall as little as I can get away with, just because it can be so flimsy, and I would hate, it's never happened, but I would hate for it to fall on someone. We talked about books, right? Now, I'm not going to put my banner up. This is one of my banners. Depending on the show, I may hang it from the front of my table using bulldog clips, like at smaller library comic cons where I don't necessarily want to clutter up the skyline. Everyone's got lower table displays. I might hang it from the front. If I need to, I could hang it from the top. This was purchased from, oh my goodness, it might have been Cheap Signs years ago. I've done a bunch of different sign vendors. If you are just getting started and you don't know what works for you and you want to try things out, Office Max prints on scrim. Scrim is basically a plastic paper, and you can do your banners like that with a little bit of modification. So they are very lightweight, they're very colorful, they're fairly inexpensive. They can be a great way to try out a bunch of different banners. You can also make your own banner. This is hand-cut bunting with hand-cut letters. It was all sewn by me. If it fits your aesthetic, if it fits what you're selling, and this does, it's got like a picnic kind of cottagecore, kind of meadow vibe that goes with my table, but you can make your own banners as well. I mentioned having big art, and there's a lot of different ways you can do this, but one of the ways I did it was I have this very cute limited color little Cara that I can, and see what we were talking about making sure your, let me switch this over. Hot swapping like this is not a good idea when you're doing a show, but anyway, little Cara, can put her up behind here. You can have signage to reflect that as well. And I am using magnets. I'm using magnets to stick everything to my grids. This also works with retail grids. You have a lot of different options for magnets. You can do cute magnets, but if you do cute magnets, be prepared for people to try to buy them off of you. So that could actually be a good small item to both have up and about at your table, actively being in display, and to also sell. It is an option. You don't have to do it. But I found anything cute I have on my table, they're gonna wanna buy it, and it's usually over my stuff. So you have to be kind of careful about that. I do have some things that I like to use that kind of really sell the theme of my art, the theme of my work, what I'm about, but people do try to buy that instead. So we have converted our tower into some grids. You can also use things like this, like if you were selling mugs. What I would recommend is poach your grandparents' house, poach your mom's house, poach Goodwill for these kind of cute display things. Because they can get kind of expensive to buy, and I'm sure there is someone in your life who has this stuff and would be happy to let you borrow it for a while. So we are going to talk about art next. I used to sell a lot of original art, love selling original art. I do still bring it with me from time to time, but I find art prints sell a lot better. Art prints. These were the bane of my existence. When I did anime cons and I did anime prints, they did not sell for me. And the reason is I was basically competing with everybody else who had fan art at that show. Everybody else who had the same fandoms as me, everyone else who had made fan art for that. It wasn't until I found a better printer to work with. I like to work with Cat Print. Their felt paper works really well with my watercolors. And I just did stuff I liked, and I stopped trying to sell it at anime cons that I found success with art prints. Now, I did do mini art prints for a really long time, little 4x6 fan arts, super inexpensive to do, super inexpensive to sell, would often sell them as sets. I'm moving away from that now because I'm trying to move away from like all these tiny little items to bigger things that are gonna last longer, that people are going to enjoy more. But art prints are a big seller for me. They are a way that I actually can earn some income, and I really like the ones I have. I have several designs because I am honestly a very prolific artist. I'm going to include postcards in the art print category because mine are little 5x7. They're printed by Moo. They have the plasticized matte finish on one side, and they are completely smooth and writable on the other side. So these are sized so you could send them or frame them. Having come from like selling mini prints at anime cons, that sort of smaller, more affordable, more accessible art is still kind of important to me, especially because a lot of my customer demographic skews younger. This tends to be more what they can budget for. The art prints are larger. I do 9x9, 9x12, and I also have the 10x14 over here. But I find 9x12 and 9x9 are my biggest sellers. So unless I'm doing a 2-day show where I have the space for it, I I generally don't bring the 10 by 14s because there isn't as much demand for them. And then when I do new designs, I typically do them in 9 by 12. This is really going to depend on what kind of art you make, what your customer demographic looks like, who are you selling to, a bunch of different factors. So I can only speak for myself. I am not necessarily giving you advice because I can't give curated advice here, and I am not one of those artists who's going to pretend that one size fits all and one solution is for everyone. So we've got these prints. Let's talk about prints. I used these spinner racks. They started out for my mini comics and zines. They were a way to kind of get things up off the table while still being very accessible to customers, and I thought they were a great idea. I have 2 of them. They are somewhat modular. I can't get them into a backpack, so I don't fly with, not a backpack, a rolling bag, so I don't fly with them, but you probably could fly with them. You can get them on Amazon. They look profesh, right? So when I moved to postcards, I would put my postcards in this and put it accessible on the table. And very few people bought postcards. So I was on TikTok, another artist talked about, don't worry about this. Have your postcards, have your prints, have your stickers, self-service. So honestly, it meant like in crates or on low shelves like this. And it helped a lot. I don't normally display them in this. I actually have 2 cute little wooden crates and I kind of angle them, very cute. But for today's setup, we're just gonna put those right here. So this way, customers can flip through them. I do have an example book that has one of each print. I have found people don't really flip through it when I'm doing craft fairs, so why spend the table space? But what I do have is I do have a display. It's like a 2 photo display, and it has one of each, both slots have a print that I happen to like in them, and that also says, hey, these aren't just postcards, these are also small art that you could put up on your wall. Now this isn't that, and this isn't my art, but I bought this frame at Five Below for like $8, and this works really well for mini prints. So this is also light enough that you could, if you want to, just hang it on your display, especially if you're working with something a little sturdier than this. Honestly, with these, this might be a little on the heavy side, but you can find, if you go out and look, and we're gonna go out and look, you can find inexpensive display options to help get your art off the tabletop and help elevate it and help put the idea in people's mind that they can see this in their house, that they could frame it, that this is something that's accessible to them. Now this is not the container I normally store my 9 by 12 prints in. I normally have 2 clear plastic bins. I did Fall Fest, I got COVID, I don't know where they are. So we're gonna pretend that this is a clear plastic bin, and we're gonna pretend that I have 2 of them. Now, I have about half of my prints labeled with these cute, sparkly labels that encourage people to flip through. This is kind of an idea I stole from a friend who used manila tags to label her prints. And what that does is that encourages people to flip through them. And this holder is not great because it's too tall. You want one a little bit lower so they can actually flip through the prints more. But this is what we've got for today's demonstration. And I will include examples of other options for your guys' convenience. But the labels kind of let them know at a glance if there's something in there they might be interested in. Since I live in Louisiana now, and I'm from Louisiana, and I want to make Louisiana things, I have a lot of Louisiana art. And one of my big sellers are the Louisiana food sets. So it's carob with a different regional specialty. And what's nice about that is I'll sell multiples, so I offer deals on multiples. So normally my prints at a show are $20 each, but if you buy multiples, I'll reduce the price down to $15 each, because I want customers to buy, if they're gonna buy a bunch, I want them to buy a bunch, and I wanna facilitate that happening, but also because the margins on my prints they allow me to do that. Margins are the difference between what it cost you to sell the thing and what it cost you to make the thing, and what remains would be the margin or the profit. Now, you also have to keep in mind that making things, painting things, bagging things, that eats into that as well. So a product that might seem like it has a really great margin, if you were selling enough of it in bulk, and if it was a long-term seller, might not always be such a great fit for you. A lot of artists, when they're giving convention advice, lean heavily in the art prints category because if done well, and if there is a demand, art prints can be a big seller for you. But as I mentioned to you guys, it wasn't until I quit doing anime cons and just niched down into something that I really enjoy that I started having some success with art prints. So art prints are not for everyone. You might find yourself spending a lot of money on art prints that really don't sell. So sometimes it's better, I print with a company. You do have the option for a lot of these things to try making it at home. With charms, you can use shrinky dinks and then lacquer them rather than going with acrylic charms to see if there's a demand. With prints, you can print them at home on your printer. You can send them out to like Office Max or Staples and have them printed, or you can handle it through a printing company. You do have options, but making things at home has its own reward, but you're going to see less money for it. It is a lot more labor, but it's a great way to prototype new products. Once you know something or a product category sells for you, then you can start placing orders with other companies. And what that often allows, often but not always, is a higher quality product. An acrylic charm is going to withstand more wear and tear in general than a shrinky dink charm. A print printed through a company like Cat Print, they're gonna have access to different papers. You're not paying for the ink that they're using. Well, you are, but you know, that the printer ink is one of the most expensive liquids on earth, and that gets expensive fast when you're selling art prints. So not having to spend all that money on consumer grade printer ink and not having to babysit your printer might be worth sending out to another company. So with art prints, you want a two-prong approach, at least in my experience. You want some that they can flip through and some that are up. So I have not finished labeling all of my art prints, and generally I would want them in an easier to flip through display. So the ones that are not labeled are typically the ones that I'll put up. I'll also put up designs based on the show, based on the kind of people I'm seeing at that show, designs that I think might be more popular. So let's say we were doing a festival and it's like a dog festival, right? I would put up more animal art, especially if I have dog prints. Now, you have some options. You can frame them, and that will let people know that, oh, look, this is art that I can put up in my house. It helps them envision it. You can also, and a friend tipped me off to this, you can buy these magnetic frames, and if you buy them in bulk, they're gonna be a lot more price savvy than buying them in ones and twos. So I'm not necessarily suggesting you buy them in ones and twos, but rather in bulk. These are neat, they're little snap frames. And then if you have hook magnets on your, well, it's not gonna work with something in a glassine bag as we have just discovered. So let me find one of my prints that is not already wrapped and I'll demonstrate. Unbagged. Does not seem to like glassine. Makes sense to me, it's a slippery thing. Magnet top, magnet bottom. You can hang it as is and it actually makes it look just a little bit nicer and more like art, or you could sell it as a set. And a friend suggested that and I love that idea. I haven't yet had a chance to try implementing it yet, but maybe my next Library Comic Con. We have some displayed. I'm gonna use magnets and just magnet a few up to our gallery wall. you guys to use your imagination and pretend that I decked out all of it and it's all lined up and it's super cute, because my energy levels are not there today. But basically, if you have books to sell and you have art prints with those characters in them, and don't rely on your character being cute enough or mascotty enough to just sell itself. Like, you have to have a concept that works for the art. It can't just be like a pinup of your character in most instances. I would recommend, though, putting the art of that character around the book so that if people like the art, you can also direct them to the book. And this is where having that elevator pitch helps out. Also, knowing your audience, knowing what they're looking for. Are they shopping for their kids? Are they shopping for themselves? And honestly, the type of show is going to make that so much easier. If I'm doing a library Comic-Con, all right, I know, they're nerds. They're here looking for comics. We can talk Studio Ghibli. We can talk cat writing. We can talk tiny things. We can talk Goblin Corps. We can talk about mushrooms. Like, all the stuff I already like. Whereas if I'm doing the Fall Fest, I have to think, okay, they're shopping for Christmas. Christmas cards would be a good idea to have, that I was supposed to have, but my printer dragged it out and I didn't have them in time. Love that. That happens sometimes. You just have to deal with it. Or I made Christmas ornaments for the Fall Fest because that's what they're looking for. They're looking for home decor. They're looking for gifts. Whereas at a Comic-Con, they're buying for themselves. They're buying for their kids. And this kind of a sale is going to be so much easier. If you're at an anime con, they're often buying for themselves or they're buying for their friends. And when it comes to commissions in that regard, if you can get one person in the group to get a commission, you can probably get all the people in the group to get a commission once the other one picks up their commission and likes it. So repeat sales, being able to sell to a group, it's stuff you learn how to do. It's easier for some people than for others. It was much easier for me in my 20s. Before the ADHD started getting really bad for me, it was much easier. Now, Joseph usually comes along with me and helps me out. So knowing your limitations, knowing what you can and cannot do, knowing what your health or your mental health will allow you to do, and seeking assistance, that's viable. If you need someone to help you at your table, you need someone to help you out at your table. Maybe you and your friend can switch off conventions. Maybe you can share a table and y'all can help sell one another's things. But figuring out what you need and figuring out how to get that without hurting anybody else, that's part of this. You don't have to do this alone. It doesn't have to be this uphill battle that you climb or you fight by yourself. So we're gonna pretend that these art prints are all up. They're all pretty. We have some here along with some others. You wanna kind of, zone things. And I got distracted because the lighting, like this wall really blocks the light source. At some shows, you may need to bring additional lighting. That is a topic for a different time, but it can drastically change the lighting, and you don't want your art to be in the dark unless you do like glow in the dark art, right? You want people to be able to see it. You want them to be able to see it clearly. So if you have to sneak in some tap lights or you have to sneak in some book lights to just kind of help illuminate what you're doing, if you have to use some fairy lights or some wreath lights around your art to add in some extra light, go for it. And Dollar Tree is a great place for those kind of inexpensive lighting resources. So we have our art up. If you're selling originals, zoning is really important. So people will look at my originals and think that they're art prints, and sometimes vice versa. So signage and zoning. Don't mix your originals with your art prints. Honestly, it's getting to the point, unless I think there's a demand for bringing the originals, I don't even bring them anymore because we're doing a lot of outdoor shows and that introduces humidity and that can ruin the art. And what's the point of bringing originals that can get ruined if there's no demand for them? So thinking about what kind of show you're going to, what that audience is looking for, what kind of budget they have, that's all really important too. And it drastically changes depending on not even where you live in the country, where you live in the state. People in New Orleans are far more likely to spend money than people out in the parishes because people in New Orleans who are going to craft fairs have more disposable income, and they're also looking for art that they can show off to their friends and be like, look how cultured I am. Oh my God, can you believe I spent $1,500 on this? It looks so good, right? Whereas people in the parishes are looking to buy like plywood yard art that they can put out in their yard. So know your demographic and know who you're selling to. And I'm in the parishes, by the way, just for context. So if I were bringing original art, what I might do is I might have it all over here by Kara, pushing the theme of watercolor comics. I might move my print rack over here so that people can flip through some of the originals. Having them in the print rack, if things get too humid and we have to store them somewhere safer, it's so much easier to just grab the print rack and put that in the trunk of the car. We also have what I call a dry box. It's a large Sterilite rolly box, and we just throw a bunch of desiccator packets in there, and it does a pretty good job of keeping dry things dry. Now, some of the things on my table are starting to get a little bit curled. That is from doing shows outside in the humidity. Unfortunately, Louisiana doesn't have a lot of like middle space kind of shows. It is craft fairs. We don't even have anime cons so much anymore, or it's nerd cons. There aren't a lot of more general interest shows that are inside. So I've been doing a lot of craft fairs, and craft fairs for paper goods artists can put a lot of wear and tear on your product, and knowing how to salvage them, knowing how to store them properly is really important. And I mentioned this earlier. Normally what I would do is I'd put my postcards under some heavy books and let them dry out and flatten out. I caught COVID, not from the show, from a friend's wedding. And I was just too sick for 2 weeks to be able to do that. So I actually have to try to retroactively do that. So you don't want to wait. It doesn't get easier the longer you wait. Generally, that is a task that we would do like the day after the show. We'd start disemboweling all of the stuff that we packed away and assessing damage, assessing wear and tear, and flattening things out, wiping dust off because outdoor shows can be very dusty, and just generally trying to make sure that all of the product that we have is in good condition. Small things. Well, it depends on what you've got. We're going to talk about stickers and charms because that's what I've currently got, but you might be selling resin crafts, you might be selling plushies, you might be selling soaps. Some of the display ideas I have will work, some will not. I encourage you to attend shows, look at what other people are doing, go to stores, look at what they're doing and get ideas, because we get inspiration not just from within our head on our own lonesome, but by going out and being part of the world. So I used to do paper stickers. I have moved to vinyl stickers. I don't cut and print them myself. I just don't. I can and I should, but I just don't. I was using Sticker Mule. I have found out some stuff that I don't like about them, so I'm going to move away to Sticker Wrap, but my remaining stock is still, unfortunately, Sticker Mule. So I have a few different varieties here, and stickers are an inexpensive option on the table. And I'm of two minds when it comes to inexpensive options, because on the one hand, I do like to have some like little tchotchkes that somebody who has very limited income or a limited budget or kids can afford. That is kind of important to me as somebody who used to go to Sanrio. But I also have noticed that when you have a lot of cheap stuff on the table, that's all people are going to buy, and you can't make enough money to justify being there. So this is gonna kind of boil down to, what are your goals for your art? What do you wanna do? Do you wanna earn a living doing just conventions? Do you do them for fun? Do you do them to connect with people? Like, what are you getting from shows, and what are your goals? And just kind of work with that. So I do still offer stickers and charms because I like making those things, and because, again, a lot of my demographic is still fairly young, and this is what they can afford. So I have this neat little stand here from Clear Display. I've had this forever. Couldn't figure out how I wanted to use it either. And then I saw somebody on TikTok using it for their stickers, and I was like, actually, that's a great idea. I've tried a few different ways to display stickers, including using baseball card holder sheets and putting them up on my grid wall. I happen to currently like this method best. So the thing with doing shows is flexibility, because there's always going to be something that throws a wrench in the works. We used to joke that it's making a sacrifice to the convention god because there's always going to be something you forgot, something that got left behind, something that broke, and it's better that your sacrifice be something small that you can deal with than something large that causes turmoil. I also have these 2 little resin trays that I made from when I was doing resin stuff. They work really well for holding my charms. I have gotten charms from a variety of vendors, including Zap. So the pink one's here, and it's king cakes, it's mushrooms. I have jambalaya pots, but everyone seems to think those are gumbo pots. I have Louisianas with a magnolia. I have bead dogs. These were all done by Zap. They're located in the UK. Their turnaround time is a little bit longer, so you want to, if you're ordering product, you want to order it way in advance. And one thing that I do is often I will sign up to mailing lists, I will sign up to newsletters for these kind of manufacturers, and when they have a sale, I try to jump on the sale. And that way, I generally have new product coming in, and usually it's in advance of the show. Now, I also have this little charm board. It's just an earring holder. I think I got the earring holder at Five Below. Really inexpensive. Wasn't gonna use it for earrings, but in some instances where I couldn't peel off the pins, I just attached them with the pins. And then in instances where I could peel off the backs, I used some foam tape to tape it on. And then I also have some charms attached as well. And this is just an up visual display of some of the things that I have. Now, we need to talk about price signs, and I need to find my price signs. And I've tried a bunch of different things with prices over the years. I've tried pricing individual products. I've tried putting the price sign right by the product. I've tried doing price signs where it's a bunch of different things. In the end, people aren't gonna read the signs. You should have the signs so you can remember what your prices are. But in the end, people aren't gonna read the signs. They're gonna ask you anyway. You could have a cheat sheet behind the table, and I've done that before too, with all your prices, because they're going to ask. I say that, but every time I just say, okay, I'm not doing price signs this time, not to be dishonest, but because they're gonna ask me anyway, I get somebody who would have bought if I had had price signs up, but because there were no price signs, they assumed everything was really expensive and just decided to walk away. So, I do think having your prices visible and available is important. It's a good thing. It's going to kind of depend on your audience and how you set up your work, how you want to do the price signs. I have also thought about having them on a tablet and it just scrolling. I mean, I've thought of a bunch of different things, and you just got to get used to people asking you for your prices. But generally, if I lean away from having price signs on the table, it's just because there isn't a lot of spare room. So we are almost all set up. I believe it's looking like it for our little micro at-home con. I'm gonna go get my price signs as well as a few other things that I think are important if you are tabling at a show, particularly if it's your first show. All right, so let's talk about where I'm at with price signs, because I've been on a journey. I've tried cute Post-it notes, I've tried hanger tags, all sorts of things. So I'm currently at, again, these are old and I rediscovered them, these little plastic chalkboard signs. Now, you can get the signs at Walmart. Dollar Tree sells these. They're like a chalk pastel for these kind of signs that is just holds up so much better and is so much easier than real chalk, and I like it better than the chalk markers. Now, this was for the ornaments, but you can buy a bunch of them, label them however you want, fix them however you want. You can magnet them to your grid wall or your retail grid. You can ever so carefully hang them on your retail grid if you want. So those are not a bad option. I also have some of these. I did not find my charm sign, so this says priceless books, and it's got the different books I have and their prices. Nobody reads this, but It can be placed on the table here. I could, if I wanted to, do it on the top. Actually, no, I can't, because this thing is wider than the shelf. So no, I can't do that. You could just have this as a laminated sign, and you could just stick it up on this thing, or you could put it in a sleeve protector and stick it up on this thing. Some people do their signage with Velcro on it, and they just Velcro it to stuff. So you do have options. And like I said, while people don't really read signs, I do like having them. Another thing, in our setup, I have in general created a U-shaped display that leaves the front part where I would be sitting open so you can see me. Different artists handle it differently. We've seen the McDonald's windows where there's literally like an eye slot and it's all covered up. We have seen like where one side is open and the rest is filled up. It really kind of depends on the artist, their customer base, and their needs. I get a little bit claustrophobic, so I like having it kind of open. I used to like to stand for shows when dealing with customers because it gives me some height. Some people assume that if you're not standing, it looks unprofessional. However, I have developed show grins and I cannot stand like that anymore. So I need to sit, and generally I will try, Joseph will stand and I will sit, and we'll try to leave the U shape open. But I bring that up because as I am dealing with my own disabilities, it's starting to make me more cognizant of other artists, of which there are many who have disabilities of their own. So I'm gonna just go ahead and say, there are people who feel like you should have a particular persona for sales. And I do think that is what a lot of people are expecting. But I don't think you are any less professional or any less in love with your art or any less engaged if you can't meet that professional standard. I used to be the big smile and greet your customers and ask them how they're doing and have your elevator pitch ready and put on the Barbie persona. I used to be a big believer of that. But I have had customers who are so shy that me talking to them like that makes them intensely uncomfortable, and they wanted to just look for a little while and then kind of make up their own mind. They felt like I was pressuring them. I have had customers who took that friendliness as an opportunity to talk my ear off about their cosplay for 40 minutes and not buy anything, so I guess they're not really customers. And I myself have noticed that when I am on display, when I am performing all day long with no breaks, with no sitting, I end up falling apart. I get a migraine. I cannot control when I disassociate. So being able to carve those breaks, being able to carve those spaces out, knowing how to read your particular audience is important. Being a carnival barker doesn't even really work for carnival barkers, and it definitely doesn't work for me. But there are some artists who the situation might be just right, and they might be just that charming, and the show might be perfect for that, and it might be a good fit. So it really comes down to checking out shows, seeing what the vibe is like, seeing what other artists are doing, because there's no one size fits all solution. There have been 6-hour shows where I was feeling real good. I could stand for the whole thing. There were shows where we were packed in so tight, I couldn't even stand because I would have been pressed up against the table the entire time. So I had to sit and pull myself all the way up. There were shows where I was filling commissions the whole time, and I can't stand and draw. So I would be sitting and filling commissions. It really depends on your audience. I'm kind of thinking, I'm not even joking about getting a doorbell that customers can ring when they're ready to, like, you know, whether to make conversation, they're ready to hear the pitch, they want to make a purchase, because my peripheral vision is not very good. I don't always see them. So I'm also trying to think of solutions to my own disabilities and to my own shortcomings that will allow me to be a better customer service representative for my own brand and for my own products. But if you guys have any interesting ideas and interesting solutions for this, let me know. If I had a doorbell, it would have to be up here, because if I had it further away, you know there would be people who abuse that. Okay, so my signage, so you want two kinds of signage, right? We don't have any banners here, but you want big visible signage that is visible from like 10 feet away, or if you're at a craft fair, visible from 25 feet away. And then you want signage that explains prices. I typically avoid signage that is overly wordy if I can help it, because I would prefer in general to pitch and show the books myself. But I have done signage that has like short elevator blurbs when displaying my books just ever so slightly outside of my tent, so that passerbys can, like, maybe that'll capture their attention. But I'm always trying out new ideas and trying out new things. And you have a lot of options for signage. So I also found some more of my stickers. So these are like Louisiana sticker sheets. And then these are window clings. I also found another display I have. It's just a little cork lined metal tray that I put some cute washi tape around. I found that at Target. So like, if you're interested in doing shows, I really would not recommend waiting until the weekend before the show to start looking for your display items. I would recommend 6 months out, you start thinking about it, you start brainstorming it, you come up with a game plan. I also found this camping light. That makes a huge difference, right? That we use when we're in a tent. It's usually hung about 10 feet up because the tent, especially in winter, gets dark really early. You can, I don't want to look at this thing, but you can adjust the brightness as well. You could use such a thing, I'm so sorry, I'm blinding you guys, as a spotlight. And this one actually also works as a battery backup. What I like about this little thing, it's waterproof. It's got like the silicone shielding. You can hang it or you can magnet it. So like if it's a tent leg, pretend that's a tent leg, you can just stick it to it. You don't have to hang it from the top. So these are pretty helpful. Would not recommend these for anime cons, even though I have been in anime cons that were literally in a parking garage with very little lighting because you're gonna blind your neighbors. But if it's in your own tent, I mean, you're only hurting yourself. Additional display items, like I like these paper clips because I make books about tiny people, so it's a huge paper clip. And I can also clip a print into it, and we're creating height. We have things at different levels. We have things at different heights on the table. So I mentioned business cards earlier. We've tried a lot of different things with business cards, and believe it or not, I do always have 2 types of cards at my table for people who are interested in commissions, for people who are interested in having me teach at their library, for people who are really interested, or just honestly anybody who asks for a card because they like my art. So I have the little mini business cards, and these are in a bunch of different designs, and I will usually try to curate what I'll either let them pick one and then they can pick something that they like, and that'll help remind them of what they liked about my art, or I try to curate it to what if they're talking about a realistic portrait, I have some realistic portraits. I also have the inky fingers. So this is what I mean by it has a large image on the front and then all the information's on the back. That was a bad idea. It should have all been on the front. That way, if you put it on your wall, you have to see the information too. I also do have these. I just don't have them out on the front of the table like I used to anymore. These are, again, if somebody's really interested in my work or they really like my work, or we're talking about my YouTube channel, then I can hand them one of these. I also have branded Post-it notes because I am always, especially at library Comic Cons, I am always like vibing and connecting with other people and talking about books I really loved or comics I really loved, and like writing down websites and writing down recommendations. So the branded ones, hopefully they'll check out my work while they're checking out these other works. Hopefully they'll remember the lady who gave them all the cool recommendations, but it's just like a little nice touch. Now, I do have this now. This is it is both laminated, so I could just put it up on the board. It's also in its own holder. Kind of depends on what space is looking like at the table. We're looking very full today. But this has, and I need to update this because it has my Twitter. But it also has my Tumblr that has my webcomic on it. It's got my old blog spot, which is technically still up, but I haven't been updating it. Basically, it's got all the vitals. And it says, like my art, take a photo and add me on, and it has all these. So I do this instead of business cards because this costs me nothing to make. Well, it costs me something to make, but it doesn't cost me anything to have it on the table, and it doesn't cost me anything when people take a photo of it. So I do still have business cards for people who are interested and want to commission me, or they want to check out my online shop, or they want me to come teach a class. But I have this for people who like my art and would like to check it out at their leisure. Now, we don't really have room on the table for this right now. So let's pretend I went ahead and I magneted it up right here, maybe. And I'll just double stack it. Now, I mentioned earlier, and all my business cards ended up in this, and I have no idea how. I mentioned earlier having a nice little display frame to show off my 5x7 postcards in kind of a nicer little format. We don't really have room on the table for this right now. I don't always have these things out, okay? I don't always have everything out the way we have it. In fact, depending on the show, if I can have like all the grid wall out, I might only have one. Ooh, those are not, oh, that's another thing. Throughout the show, we keep fixing up the table. We keep adjusting things. We might change which prints are up. If mushroom prints are really popular at that show, we might switch some stuff out for more mushroom prints. We're always trying to keep up with what people seem to like and what they seem to be looking for. And another thing about rearranging your table during the show, people might pass by your table and just kind of give it a glance, whatever, they didn't see anything they like. 2 hours later, you've rearranged things just a little bit. Maybe you change where the books are at. Maybe you change where the prints are at. You change what prints are up. You don't have to do all of it. You can just change a couple things. Maybe this time it catches their eye. They didn't see it the first time. So if you have the time, if it's a slow show, rearrange things a little bit. See if you can kind of freshen it up. So I'm going to put this, I have run out of room. Put that maybe there. Put this maybe here. I don't know. We don't have to have every display thing you've ever had ever out on the table either. Like, you know, you don't want, this is a thing I had to learn the hard way, and it seems like old lessons don't take. You don't want to have your table so cluttered that people feel stressed out looking at it, and this is a stressful situation. So typically what I would do now is I would not have both towers. I would, if I were doing a library con and I couldn't bring my grid wall, which if I could bring my grid wall, 1, 2, 3 behind me, creating a clean backdrop with art prints on it. You're just gonna have to imagine that. I would only have one of these up, maybe, and I would have the book stack, and I might bring some taller display from home and just get some different items up there so that we don't have so many prints, we don't have so much grid wall. I also maybe wouldn't go so high with these, especially if I had the retail grid behind me. So it's about, I keep saying this because it is really important. It's about thinking critically about where you're going to be selling at. Ideally, it's about knowing what kind of table and what kind of space you're going to have and planning around that. And that's why I talked about doing the demo table, because we did this and I can already tell this table is too cluttered. Somebody might look at this table and have a panic attack because there is a lot on this table. We might opt to do the books a little bit differently. Two-ish final things I want to talk about. We're going to talk about making those sales. And I am going to say this now, I'm not a tax professional, I'm not a tax expert, I'm not giving you tax advice, pay your taxes. Different areas require you to pay them in different ways. St. Charles Parish collects sales tax and they want that sales tax, like they want it that quarter. So different areas want different things. Talk to other artists in that area about how they pay their sales tax. If they're comfortable, talk. That's kind of a big thing. That might be buy you a coffee kind of a thing, you know, but talk to other artists and see how sales tax is handled in that area. So we're not talking about tax advice. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to bake my sales tax into the price of my items so it isn't like bait and switch. If it's $10, you pay me $10 and I will pay the sales tax out of that, which is another reason why margins are important. But Some people will tack the sales tax on top of that. So now we're going to talk about payment and accepting payment. When I started doing cons, cash was king. I did take credit card, but cash was most of my transactions. So I had a little plastic, I still have a little plastic wallet. We call it the Con Kitty, and it's one of those coupon wallets. I don't even know if you can buy those anymore because I don't even know if people do coupons anymore. But we had a slot for each bill, and it makes making change really easy. Some people do lock boxes. I just never, ever leave the Con Kitty unattended, and I'm never gonna tell you where the Con Kitty's at. But lock boxes are actually incredibly easy to pick. You can push the pin out of the hinge. Honestly, they're easy to steal. You know, you just pick it up and run with it. Whereas something that I can bring with me at any given time and it's never left unsecured at my table, it's easier for me. Also, back when I was doing shows, if I made a lot of money that show, I'd hit the bank immediately. If that hotel had a way for me to deposit money, like some ATMs will take cash and you can put it into your account, I would do that immediately. I never wanted to be carrying more than about $100 in my kitty at any given time because that can make you a target. Now people are paying with credit card. We use Square, have used Square for years. It's fine. There's transaction fees. Everything has transaction fees. It's convenient. It takes credit cards. We also use Square at this point for a lot of our inventorying system. Joseph's better at keeping up with that than I am. I used to have a book and I just wrote down what sold and for how much. And that way I could take more nuanced notes about things that were selling, but it was slow, it was clunky, it made it much harder to tabulate how much I'd sold. Square will send you a report. We're not affiliated. I don't have any sponsors except for Patreon, so anything I tell you guys is my own experience or something I like, okay? I believe Square has Venmo integration with it, so you can also accept Venmo payments using your Square account. I do PayPal. I have a PayPal. I do Patreon, so I get my money through PayPal. When I do online commissions, I generally want to be paid through PayPal, so I can also take PayPal. Those are all options. I would recommend having the ability to take at least 2 forms of payment. You can list it. We used to have a sign on the table that said we take Square or credit card, but now that that's become so ubiquitous, most people just assume, and I'm good with them assuming. My preference is credit card because it goes in straight into, at the end of the weekend, it goes into the bank account. So it's not like I have cash that could be mugged, you know? Some artists prefer cash for their own reasons. I also like using Square because it makes it easy to be very honest about my taxes. In the past, I would overpay all my taxes for what I made at shows because I didn't want to anger Uncle Sam. So I would estimate on the high side of what I made and pay according to that, which is foolish, but you know. Square makes it a lot easier to kind of keep track of how much money I actually made and pay taxes on what I actually made. I'm not talking about what I profited, by the way. Taxes don't care about what you profited, is what I found. They want to know what you sold. They want their bite, especially for sales tax, they want their bite on what you sold. So even if you made no actual money on that show after paying for the table and paying for travel and buying the stuff, they still want to get paid on what you sold. So speaking of sales, often when people buy something, they would like a bag for that. Now I have 2 types of bags. One of them is a friend of mine bought a bunch of plastic handled bags, and this is actually the small size of what they bought, and liquidated half to me. I don't remember if I paid them for them or if they found that this size didn't work for them anymore, and they were just like, please take it so it doesn't end up just in a landfill. So I'm working my way through those. I also have, and I like these better, but they're still not the solution I'm looking for. I have these clear handled bags that seal at the bottom. And what I love about these, and I learned this from my Anime Con days, is if people see you, hang on a second. Bowie is frisking and playing about, so I thought y'all can have some obligatory, adorable Bowie, because we all love Bowie, who is such a good boy. Yeah. So if you hear running, swirling about, if my Yes. If my easel gets knocked over, it's him. If people see other people with your art and they like it, they're going to try to find out where it was sold. Commissions sold themselves when I was doing it like that. Books sell themselves when I do it like that. So I put books and art prints in the clear handle bag so people can see them. I want to and am working towards just glassine, but when I say glassine, I mean wax paper bags because that's more eco-friendly. And I also use large craft paper shopper bags, but I want to start putting stickers. Like I used to do that. I want to start doing stickers or screen printing on the front of them. Something that says Natto Soup Studio on it so people know where it came from. Because we're all humans here, right? Definitely none of us are like, I don't know, squirrel people. Humans are social creatures. We see another human do something and we think that might be a good fit for us. So when people see other people walking around with your stuff, they decide they want it too. So if they can actually see the branding, if they can see the objects inside, it's going to inspire them to take a chance and try buying your stuff, especially if they're a new customer. So we have talked about books. I offer signings. I used to do in-book sketches. I will still do in-book sketches for $5 at request. And the reason I charge is they take time. In fact, often when people buy books online, I'm happy to do a sketch for them because I can do it at my own leisure. But at shows, I do charge because it takes time to do. Don't mind doing it. I just don't want to back up with other customers if I can help it. But I will always sign books, dedicate books for free. I love doing that. It means a lot to me. And I remember how special it was. My mom and grandma would buy books for me, and my grandma would dedicate the kids' book she bought for me to me. And I loved my name in the books. It was my book. So I make books about tiny people. I found this very cushy pencil-shaped grip. It was in the clear section at Walmart, and it had a really garbagey pen in it. Instead, I pulled it out and I put a Sakura metallic jelly roll in it, and I like to sign my books with this. Just kind of adds to the magic. And generally when my table isn't as full as this, I have little mushrooms out, I have a mushroom garland out, I have a giant pencil. Sometimes I put out giant crayons. People always want to buy those things. You can get them on Amazon for less than I would sell it to you. Just do it there. You don't need that. That's not what we're selling. But I have it because hopefully it puts you in the mood for tiny people things. And it makes you think, wow, this giant crayon, what if I was 7 inches tall? I'm trying to get you in the headspace where you might be able to enjoy my books because they're all about tiny people. So I have one more thing I want to talk to you guys about before we head over to Dollar Tree and Five Below. And this is not required. This is just something I do and that I enjoy doing. For the most part, I dress up for every show, unless I'm just going to be out there sweating in the heat, and then I might still dress up for that show, unless I'm going to be out there freezing my butt off, and then I still might dress up for that show. In the past, I went for more of like a Lolita aesthetic with big poofy dresses and flower crowns, and I still think that's super cute, but I've kind of moved on to like hobbitcore and goblincore because I really feel like it kind of reflects the aesthetics that I show in 7-inch Caro. So I kind of try to dress like a Lilliputian when I'm tabling at shows. I've got a giant pencil that I wear in a belt around my waist. I will wear corsets and halters and skirts or pants. I'm wearing pants today for you guys. I will wear, well, you guys can't see it right now, but vests. I have a giant sewing pin to put in my hair, and I'm working on making some more. And that's also the reason I have props like this. I want you, when you come to my table, when you come into my booth, and it's not set up in its full glory right now, but I want you to feel like you're entering the world of 7-inch Caro. I want your imagination and your whimsy to be activated. I want you to look at my work and it bring a smile to your face and it makes you happy. That is how I communicate my love for other people and hopefully make a living doing so. Do you have to dress up? Sure, why not? It's fun to dress up. It's not mandatory though, and there's some days where I'm not feeling good or my arthritis is really bad or it's really cold outside and I just don't have it in me to do it. It's not mandatory, but it does open up opportunities for conversations with people who also like the same things that you like. Just like offering fan art or selling fan art can open up those kind of conversations and those kind of opportunities. And if you have original work to sell, it can often be a wonderful gateway. Like if you like Breath of the Wild, like if you like running through the tall grass, if you like chasing lizards, if you like scrambling up mountainsides, if you like spending time with animals, then you'll probably like 7-inch Kara, because a lot of what I love about Breath of the Wild, I have put into my own work. So it does open up these opportunities for conversations. I currently am not offering any fan art at my table because 1, I'm not doing any anime cons, and 2, I just would rather put that time into drawing my comics or reviewing art supplies or painting original illustrations. But that's just my opinion, and it doesn't make on that level fan art the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do. I think there is a lot of nuance behind creating fan art, and it really kind of depends on if the company is cool with fan works and derivative works like doujinshi culture, or if they are liable to crack down on it like Disney does with Marvel. So it's really kind of a fine line and a hazy area, and it's not one that I really want to get super into. Because while I don't currently offer any fan art at my table, I have in the past. And some of my best friends who are convention artists sell a lot of fan art and are huge Genshin Impact fans. So I can see both sides, and it's really a choice that you as the artist need to make for yourself. It can be great for building up an audience. However, will that audience like your original work? It's kind of a toss-up. It really kind of depends on the fandom and how close your work is to the fan art. And by that, I don't mean art style. I mean the themes, the values, the things that reach in and grab somebody's heart and make them care about it. If your work is pretty similar, there's a good chance that they'll really enjoy it. And creating fan art in that vein can help encourage them to pick up your work and give it a shot. But some artists have found that people will buy their fan art because they're a fan of the series and never follow any of their work, not show any interest in their original personal work at all. And some people who are big fandom artists have had the problem that their fans of their fandom work will get mad at them for not creating more fandom work and creating original work. So it's really just something that you have to decide for yourself, and that I can't really tell you what to do or what not to do, because it's really going to depend on what you want as an artist and as a creator. So I hope today's, is this a tutorial? Is it a vlog? Is it a how-to? I don't really know, but I hope it was helpful, inspiring, and useful for you guys. Hopefully it's gotten you thinking about how you want to go about selling your own work. If you have any specific questions, you can hit me up on my art-centric Discord server, The Paint Box, or you can join me over on Patreon and ask me over there, and I will be far more likely to create follow-up videos for people who are helping to support the work that we do here on the channel. Because as I mentioned earlier, we don't have any sponsors outside of Joseph, my husband, and my patrons on Patreon, who I super duper appreciate, and you guys can see their names here. Wahaha! We thought the video was over, but it's not. We're about to go to Dollar Tree and Five Below and see what we can find in terms of setup and table decor over there. And the reason I picked those places specifically is they're pretty inexpensive, they're pretty ubiquitous in the US, and they're accessible to a variety of budgets. If you have an IKEA and if you have a Daiso, those would also be great places to check, and you can also check Amazon and Walmart. It is also helpful if you're looking to get into conventions to check out howtobeaconartist.tumblr.com. Carrie Scott is the current moderator of that, and there is a huge backlog of just helpful resources for people who are looking to get into conventions. If you know of any great, helpful, and kind convention groups, feel free to shout them out down in the comments. So, onward to Five Below and Dollar Tree. This isn't everything. Some shows don't do badges. Some shows want you to return the badge. Some shows do like a giant parking pass instead of a badge. But this is a lot, not all, but a lot of the badges from just different shows that I've done over the years.
This video ended up going way too long, so while there is a part 2 and part 2 is already recorded, it's not going to be part of this video. So I hope you guys will consider subscribing, sticking around, and checking it out when it is released, because I worked really hard on it. I think you guys will really like it. I'm going to take you around to go buy convention supplies at Dollar Tree and Five Below. Huge thanks to my amazing patrons. They make mega videos like this possible. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. It really means a lot to me. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you guys soon.